Hello everyone, we're here in the Tinkerbox, and I'm here with a nice little clock here with a command block in spawn saying it's in spawn, but I have a command block saying it's not in spawn. How in the world could that be possible? If Minecraft only keeps spawn chunks loaded, then how in the world is something outside of spawn still loaded and sending us messages? Well, let's just, fly out here and see what exactly's up. Because, vanilla chunk loaders can't seriously be possible, except they are. Simply Sark, whose video I will link down in the description, has discovered that hoppers will update a chunk. And using this, we can actually keep areas outside of spawn loaded. So I will prove to you that this is keeping this loaded by removing this piece of redstone. And once we go back to spawn, you'll see that we do not get the not spawn message anymore once we leave its range. So I will do that as quick as possible. So we'll just give it a second and it should stop giving us messages pretty soon here. Okay, so here we are back in the spawn area, and you'll notice the only messages we're getting now are spawn. Now, to prove to you I haven't done anything tricky, we'll fly back over there. We'll reactivate the hopper clock that I just deactivated and reactivate the redstone clock just in case it froze up, and you'll see that it will actually load up and keep that chunk loaded once more. And once I kind of show it to you, yep, there we go, we're starting to get messages that say not spawn again. So we'll just go over here and put this redstone lamp back into the hoppers to create a nice little clock. There we go. Okay, so we will go ahead and get out of Dodge, and we should see in just a moment. Okay, that happens sometimes. Now, this runs into the issue that for this to work, when you leave the chunks, the item in the hopper has to be in the loaded chunk. So sometimes you're going to have to go back and forth a couple of times to get the first set of hoppers working correctly. But after you get the first set of hoppers working correctly, the rest of them should do just fine. So I'll just keep flying back and we'll try our luck again. Nope, okay, it turned off again. Like I said, it can take a couple of tries. Okay, there you go. We can see it's staying loaded now, and the reason it wasn't staying loaded was not because of the fact that it was unloading the chunk while the item was in the other hopper, which it can happen, by the way, but you usually after one or two tries can get it. I haven't had that much issue. In a little derp moment, I actually deleted the second hopper clock that was keeping it loaded, so that's why it wasn't staying loaded, because I had deleted this guy and forgot to put him back to restart it. So there was a little proof of concept to show you that this works, and now I'll go ahead and explain why this works. Okay, so the way this works is when you throw items, for instance, through a nether portal or an end portal, it will load the chunks around it to send the item through. A very similar thing is happening with this hopper here. This hopper is on the edge of chunks that are loaded, while this hopper isn't. Now, since there's just one item here, it's sending it back and forth really, really fast. And so what happens is when the item's in this hopper while the chunk's loaded, it will send it into this hopper, which will load up this chunk, and then we'll send it back to this hopper, and then this item will get sent back to this hopper, keeping this chunk loaded, and so on and so forth. And that hopper chain will keep this hopper chain loaded. and you can go every other chunk basically with clocks. So you build one clock on the edge of the first chunk, and then you don't need another clock to join the next two chunks, but you do on the one after that. So basically, here is the end of the first chunk. The end of the second chunk doesn't need one, but the end of the third chunk does, to keep the next set of two chunks loaded. And so that is how the hopper clocks work. Now, to build them are very simple. You just build two hoppers facing each other on the edge of a chunk. This one isn't on the edge of a chunk, but this one is. These colored wools mark the edges of chunks, and so you'll use that to go ahead and create a hopper clock to reload chunks. Okay, so at this point you may be wondering how you find the edge of a chunk. This is where the F3 menu comes in. If you pull it up, you will see that after the X coordinate there's a / C:21 6, and then on the Z there's a / C:-3 14. The 21 and the -3 tell you which chunk you're in the grid. So from 0, 0, the base chunk of the world basically, I'm 21 chunks away in the Z direction and -3 chunks away, or 21 chunks away in the X direction and -3 chunks away in the Z direction, and the 6 tells you where you are exactly in the chunk. So that 15 right there means if you're looking at the Z, you'll see it says 15 in parentheses. That means I'm on the edge of the chunk. That tells you my position in the chunk, and the blocks range from 0 to 15, so there's 16 blocks in a chunk. And you'll see if I go one block over in the Z direction, it now says 0 because I'm in the first block, Z-wise in this chunk, and -2 because I've moved one chunk over. And same here, you can see that when I go between the red and black transition here, I'm on block 0 in the 21st chunk in the X, and if I go one block over, I am in the 15th block in the 20th X chunk. And so you can use that to find chunks. You just look at those C's, and you just try to find which blocks it changes colors on, and you don't even have to do a fancy wool thing like this. This is just a helpful visual representation. So now the next issue is finding the spawn chunk and where you need to place your hoppers to start loading chunks. Now, when I first made this world, I used MCEdit to set the spawn to 0, 0, 0. Your spawn may not actually be at the origin of the world. The easiest way to find spawn, vanilla, is simply sleep in a bed, destroy it, and then kill yourself a bunch of times. So you spawn at the world spawn due to the fact your bed was destroyed, and just keep marking where you spawn basically, and you'll really easily be able to tell after a couple of deaths what chunk it is you're spawning in. Now, from the center chunk of the world, Minecraft keeps a 24 by 24 area of chunks loaded. So if I fly all the way back out here to where my clocks are, just give me un momento. It's a little bit of a travel since 24 by 24 chunks is a rather large area. That's 24 times 16 in blocks, whatever that is. Okay, so over here we can see the hopper, and you will notice that it is in the 23rd chunk. It actually could have been one chunk over. I misdid that. Okay, but basically, if, for instance, mine started at chunk 0, 0, so the farthest away I could go is 24, -24 in either X or Z. So technically I should be starting my hopper clock here. I just started it at one too far in by accident. So that is the edge where you'll have to start your hopper clock, and then like I discussed earlier, you'll have to go every other chunk putting these hopper clocks to get to wherever you are. So assuming you're not terribly far away from spawn, it's not going to be that hard to keep your chunks loaded, and it's going to cost you 4 hoppers per every 2 chunk area you keep loaded. It'd be like a 2x2 because it's keeping these chunks, these 2 chunks. It's 2x2 radius loaded, which isn't that expensive for a vanilla chunk loader. And that's basically it. You now know how to find your spawn chunk by killing yourself over and over. You now know how far away you can go. Remember, it's a 24x24 area. So let's say your spawn happens to be in chunk 27. That means you could go -22, +26 in the X, and 7 for the Z. So that would be +32, no, +31 chunks and -17, I believe, if I didn't do basic addition in my head wrong. It's late at night and I just got off work, so don't blame me if those 2 numbers are wrong, but you guys get the idea. So you guys can use this information and go ahead and prosper from chunk loading. I hope you guys keep your chunks loaded, and I'll see you next time. Toodles!